theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Good afternoon, Warren. Have you ever had an infatuation on a public figure, like a pop star or something like that?
No, do you know, not, I suppose I did with Michael Jackson a bit, I must admit.
Oh, did you?
Yes, to the point where I was in high school and I had very curly hair, Suzy. It was so curly that my mum used to use one of those, those curling comb things and puff it up.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the microphone cover in front of me and it's reminding me of my hair and what it looked like. But the reason I say that is because I did go into a hairdresser and I said, I want to look like Michael Jackson. And they went, okay, we won't be a minute. And they said, we'll just get things ready. And I sat down, they stuck a poster of him up on the mirror and I sat in front of it.
So did you have little tight curls?
I had little tight curls. Head? I had it, and they cut it. It was long at the back and the front. You know when he had that look.
Oh my goodness!
But it was that was, I suppose, not really an infatuation. I mean, he was trendy and his music was great, and I wanted to look like him. I had the curls.
Yeah, but you didn't think that you would want to have a personal relationship or know that person?
No,
right.
no, not at all. No, I mean, no, that didn't even come into my mind. I thought there's no way. But yeah, that's the only real thing, I suppose. What about you?
Look, I've always had a thing for pop stars. I still do, but only when I was really, really young that I fantasized about having personal relationships with them.
Oh,
you know,
right.
Maybe in my mid-teens, I think I thought the boys in Take That were very, very appealing, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm like falling in love with them, with these people. But other than that, pop stars are just sort of like I guess more like a role model than someone that I want to be close to. In fact, like I rarely go to concerts, because even though I love them and I like, I'm an avid collector of music items like records and CDs and things. But when they come to town, I can't be bothered. I want them to be really far away.
I'm the same. I can't be bothered either. There's something about I love recorded music as opposed to live music. I just always have. And I think it's probably the devices that it comes on, like you. I collected records and CDs and all of that sort of thing. And it was the thing about going and buying it and going down to the record store, buying the record, putting it on, listening to it. I suppose you could listen to it whenever you wanted. You could, move however you wanted, etc. There was this, this relationship with the medium that it came on for me. And I'm the same. Live music. When they came to town, I was like, nah. I mean, I did see Madonna and a few of the big ones, but I was like, nah, not interested. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But today...
But that's right.
We're talking about Fanatical because this is streaming at the moment. It's the catfishing of Tegan and SARA. Suzy, did you watch it?
What do you think? I saw it. I saw it last week. I saw it last night.
And give us your review.
For 16 years, Tegan Quinn from the Canadian indie pop band Tegan and SARA has had her identity stolen and her personality falsely represented online. One or more persons have been pretending to be Tegan and talking to fans, often tricking them into fake virtual romances. In the new documentary Fanatical, The Catfishing of Tegan and SARA, available to stream on Disney+, we see the manifestation of one of the dark sides of modern technology and the futility of efforts trying to stop it. Yes, it seems that nothing could be done to stop perpetrators in situations like this. At the start of their career, Tegan and SARA enjoyed a closeness with their fans, spending hours after performances signing merchandise and talking to supporters. But when the catfishing began, the duo found themselves unable to trust anyone, especially their public, and had to start retreating and to enforce a distance with the outside world. Fanatical is a gripping documentary offering insight into a part of the pop music business that rarely gets talked about in the public domain. Tegan and SARA discuss the troubling aspects of their fame, how some fans have completely unreasonable expectations and demands of their stars, and how it can be difficult to draw boundaries as public figures. Some of the concerns, although very real, can be somewhat unrelatable for those of us who live more normal lives, but the documentary does a good job of showing the intensity of Tegan's experiences as well as those who have been fooled. Emotional trauma in Fanatical is presented powerfully, and watching the filmmakers trying to catch an offender proves to be very riveting indeed. People will always think this will not ever happen to me, but the truth is that malicious individuals never stop trying their luck on the internet, and vigilance is absolutely necessary for navigating life and our devices. Warren, are you likely to fall prey to something like this?
Look, it's hard to say, isn't it? You don't know. We can always have our best intentions and keep our guards up, but as you see, the internet, I suppose, it's lost its innocence, hasn't it? And this documentary takes us back to a time where we did have chat rooms, and there wasn't the social media that there is today. And I suppose there was an innocence about it, wasn't there? It was like, oh, great, this is a new way to meet people with a similar interest and talk about things. And that's where I suppose the seeds of this catfishing were sown, as we do see in the documentary. And I was kind of sad watching it, because I thought afterwards, where are we now? We're at this point where the internet's come along, we use it, it's an essential tool, etc. It's changed our lives, but it's also changed it for the worse as well. There's a real negative, sinister side to it, and it's allowed these people to get access. And you see Tegan and Sarah and what goes on there, but you also see from the fans' perspective, these fans idolise them, they love them, and they're tricked into having a friendship with Tegan, and the heartbreak that comes when you find out that you've been chatting with someone for several years and it's not really that person. And what's the difference between that and also someone, one of these romance scams as well, where someone impersonates someone, you fall in love with them, you think it's real, maybe they steal your money, maybe they don't, but you still got to find out that it wasn't, and I've been duped for all these years. I found it quite heartbreaking from that perspective, Suzy.
Yeah, you said something interesting about those being more innocent times. I feel like we are I feel like we are more aware of these things. We hear about catfishing, we hear about scams all the time, we hear about misinformation and disinformation all the time, but people still get duped all the time. Like, I have one example, not that I was catfished, but I was so desperately looking for a pair of shoes that I got duped into spending good money when it was clear on the website that it wasn't going to be a legitimate website, but the pair of shoes just appeared available at the right price. I was so desperate to get it, and even though all the signs were pointing to, oh, don't trust this website, I paid my $100 or something, and then 2 days later I thought, oh, the shoes are never going to turn up, are they? So I think on the more personal level, like when you hear people falling in love with strangers who turn out to be completely different from who they expect them to be, I think it probably starts from that point. I don't think it's that people are gullible. I think we have been pretty sophisticated, but when you want to believe in something, it's very easy to convince you. Case in point, all the stuff that's happening with the elections in America. We watch all the stuff on the news and we think, how can it be a 50-50 race? How is it possible?
Exactly.
And then you think, well, if people want to believe in something and you feed them the right thing, they'll believe it.
Suzy, it's interesting you say, particularly about the US elections. I mean, I'm not big on social media, and it's also, there's a time element to it, because I just haven't got time to sit down and scroll, or I just don't have time in my life to do it and do radio 5 days a week and another job, so I don't do it. But one of the other reasons I don't do social media so much is because I think it's not necessarily playing a good role in the world, and we see that playing out in the elections at the moment. And I don't know. I think the jury's still out for me on whether I like it or not. Maybe I sound old-fashioned. I'm not going to go back to the old, tin cans and rotary dial telephones, but I'm sceptical of it. I just don't know what's happening with it. And I also got scammed once on the internet when I had a farm, and I bought a tractor. And
a whole tractor.
And
you paid in full.
I paid a tractor, paid for a tractor, and it never arrived. And it got shipped. Apparently, it was in Newcastle, and then it disappeared. And again, my partner and I, it was new. We weren't. It was years and years ago. The internet was new, and we bought it. And I lost thousands of dollars on that tractor. And so I'm really skeptical of buying things online. I only use trusted sites, but you never know. People are sophisticated in the way that they work their way in, and I think it's important that we never blame the people who fall victim to these criminals. It's not their fault.
Yeah, it could happen to anyone.
Say, but yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it could happen to anyone, and I think it's happened to everyone because the internet has been around long enough. I think we've all been tricked by something. Maybe not everyone spent good money on thin air, but we've all been tricked by information online. So I don't think we kind of think that people are stupid or gullible. It's just that it's really hard to be vigilant all the time. I find myself, I use social media a lot, like an addiction, in the previous years, but I found this year myself really kind of withdrawing from it. I think the level of vigilance required and the level of thick skin required is too tiring,
I agree.
You're scrolling, you're thinking, oh, that's so offensive. Oh my God, that is so depressing. It's more unpleasurable than it is pleasurable these days for me. And I hear a lot of reports about this effect being really negative on young people, especially teenagers. And that's sad because maybe it does take a certain level of maturity, for people to be over the age of 50 to say, I probably don't need this very much. Let's look for something else to spend my time on. But when you are 13, 14, 15, it's very hard. It's very hard to walk away, even though you feel yourself getting sucked in a negative way.
I mean, I see it every day. You go to the gym every day and there's people with tripods filming themselves, and they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They're not personal trainers. They're just filming themselves and posting it up on social media. And I suppose good on them if that's what they want to do. But I hope they're not doing it because they don't feel good about themselves. They're trying to get that body approval from all these people on social media that they hardly know, because that's I would imagine that's not going to make you feel any better. So look, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I also when you talk about fans liking people like the fans of Tegan and Sarah, I think Sarah said something. Her sister blamed Tegan and said, "You're too nice to strangers." Whereas her view was, "You pay me for something, which is the performance. I gave it to you. That's it. It was like a transaction." And I suppose that sort of severs that relationship with the fans. So I think, I don't know. There's something about being nice to people, and we lose that because we're too scared that we're going to get scammed or we're going to get hurt, and we lose that quality about ourselves. And you could see that playing out in the documentary.
That word transaction is very important because when you're creating art, it's very hard to think of your art as a commodity, because when you're creating art, you want it to communicate, you want it to touch people, you want it to mean something to someone else. It's very hard to understand to put something out in the world that often is very vulnerable, and then treat it as kind of a commodified thing, and then you're going to give it to someone, and someone gets really moved by it, and you kind of disconnecting from it. I can understand that's hard. I'm sure, Tegan Quinn is not the only pop star who's got this problem. I'm sure it happens everywhere all the time, and it's probably the only time that we've heard of it at such detail. So that I think in that way, it's a good piece of education and understand. Maybe, I don't feel like, this prevents something like that from happening to me. I honestly don't feel like I'm invested enough for something like that happening to me. But I get the film gives a good idea of how technology works. We've been talking a lot about social media, the last, 3-4 years maybe, but we haven't talked about just the old-fashioned email. just someone getting your email address, getting a password to your email address, and what they can do, the information they can glean, they can gather from your email account, and then what they can how they can use your email for. So that was a good bit of information, I thought.
And the other thing is too, I mean, let's not forget social media. Whilst I'm demonising it, it's not the, you know, it hasn't necessarily caught. These people existed beforehand. You know, we were told don't talk to strangers, for example. But I just feel like social media has given them another vehicle to access more people more quickly and more sinisterly as well. So, yeah, but these people were always around. It's changed.
Yeah, the sad thing is that we have become more and more sort of guarded, right? Because if you can remember in the 70s, we were just, as kids, just walk out the house with no care in the world, you know? And you would just talk to strangers, and you would just like, you play with other kids, and it was not until much later, when information technology became more sort of advanced, that you just have to be careful of everything. And that, I think that is truly a sad thing, like not just for kids, but also as adults. Like, we are going out being wary of everyone. We just think that everyone's going to take advantage of you, that we think that violence is going to be around every corner. And the sad truth is that is real, you know, these things do happen, and we've become sort of a species that just has to kind of live with a lot of vigilance.
Suzy, you know, we're kids that grew up with monkey bars with concrete underneath them. Not a padded surface. Like, if we fell, bang, that was it.
Yeah.
Suzy, we are not talking next week because it's Melbourne Cup Day. I'll miss you, but you're going to have a little holiday.
Yes, I'm going to be away for a bit, but the following week I'll be back, and we'll be talking about a movie that's screening as part of the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. It's one of my favorites of the year, All Shall Be Well, from Hong Kong, 從今以後. More info at mqff.com.au. It's just a fantastic film, and I look forward to our next chat in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Suzy, and here's Tegan and Sarah. It's called Close Up.
Joy Drive.